Now that those polls have closed for about an hour across Texas, and early returns are beginning to give us a clear picture of how some of these key primary races are shaping up.
But as we know, election night numbers can shift quickly as more votes come in.
And to help us break down what we're seeing and what still matters tonight, we're joined live by Dr. John Barrett, political science professor at LeTourneau University. Dr. Barrett, it's always good to see you. And Dr. Barrett, let's get right into this. How significant are these races for Governor of Texas, Attorney General of Texas, and United States Senator this cycle?
Well, the big story here is the Senate race, right? This is the most expensive Senate race in history. All eyes are on it because you've got a very competitive race on both the Republican side and the Democratic side. Now, on the Republican side, only about a third of the vote is in, but John Cornyn is doing better than I expected. Now, he may not necessarily clinch this, right? You've got to get 50% to clinch it here. Otherwise, it goes to the runoff. It looks like Wesley Hunt, he's drawing off enough votes. It looks like this is going to drive to a runoff, which is good for Ken Paxton. But Cornyn's doing better than I expected. On the Democratic side, it's just neck and neck. Earlier in the night, Jasmine Crockett was ahead. Now Tallarico is a bit ahead. So I think this one's just going to be a nail biter.
And Dr. Barrett, let's talk about this U.S. Senate race and Wesley Hunt and kind of the critical, 13% that he has so far in this race. I know we're still early on with those votes rolling in, but talk about just this race and really kind of what Wesley Hunt has done in this race since he's thrown his hat in it.
Yeah, this could prove to be very pivotal because if John Cornyn ends the night ahead, but still below that 50% threshold and it goes to the runoff, well, in the runoff, those are the most dedicated voters, right? So the most conservative of Republicans, the most liberal of Democrats typically vote in those runoff elections, and that could tip the scales and swing it back around to Ken Paxton.
And we know President Trump didn't endorse Ken Paxton or Senator John Cornyn. How does that, make or break voter perception?
Yeah, Trump has sat this one out, which is a little unusual. He's given some signals that he may jump into it, maybe when the night's over and we see. So maybe if Cornyn is a little bit ahead, Trump will come out and endorse him and try to swing votes that way. But you really can't say what's going to happen there.
And then also, Dr. Barrett, we're looking at just rough numbers coming in right now for the Agriculture Commissioner race. Nate Sheets, who hasn't run before, he has got a strong lead over Sid Miller. What is your kind of perception on this race so far and really the turnout and the response that we're seeing from voters across the state of Texas?
Yeah, Sheets is doing relatively well. He was up earlier and then later on it looked like it was going to be a closer race there. So we'll see how that's doing. Mays Middleton is doing very well on the Attorney General side. I would have expected Chip Roy to put up a stronger front tonight. And so that's something that we're kind of learning early on. So that's interesting as well. And then, here in the Texas 32 race, this is a new district that's kind of been stretched over as part of the whole redistricting effort. And so it's kind of a wide open field for Republicans. Jace Yarbrough seems to be doing quite well then. He may be able to clinch this without a runoff. So that's something we've learned.
And Dr. Barrett, we're following a lot of local county commissioner and justice of the peace election candidates here in East Texas. Why should voters care about those roles?
Well, those roles are very important. One is, the county government, city government, this is the things that really impacts your life on a day-to-day basis. And so it's worth the time and effort to investigate the candidates, to understand the issues they care about, because again, it matters of, when is the trash going to get picked up and is the water going to work and all these just kind of bread and butter issues. And then a lot of these people go on to run for higher office. So if you're disappointed with some of the candidates you have at higher office, it helps if you get invested in the down ballot races so that you kind of help to grow good candidates there.
And Dr. Barrett, I want to ask you another question about what we're seeing with that U.S. Senate race. I know, again, that is one of the biggest races we're following across the state tonight. Again, it is a hot race. We've only got about 36% reporting. So, again, we still have a long ways to go. But is there any, it seems like all the usual suspects are at the top and there really aren't any surprises. Are you seeing anything differently in terms of the U.S. Senate race?
Thing that kind of I was a little bit surprised about is how strongly John Cornyn is doing. The polling was kind of suggesting that Ken Paxton, was going to take the lead here. And if that was true, I think it would have been all over for John Cornyn, right? If Paxton ends the night ahead and then it gets forced even to a runoff, I think Cornyn would just lose a lot of momentum as the incumbent. It wouldn't surprise me if Trump stepped in at that point and endorsed Paxton. But, with Cornyn ahead, well, who knows? It's kind of a jump ball. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Barrett, for joining us.